Hi, I'm Lance Lambert. Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Vehicle Show. We are in Spanaway, Washington at the High-Tech Collision Classic Car and Truck Show. There are a lot of cars rolling in here today. The last I heard, there are about 300 cars. Well, you're going to get a chance to see a lot of these cars, meet a few of the owners, take a close look at a few of the cars, and hear some great music like we always play for you. So what I want you to do, is to just kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. Ron Mustaine, you stopped me at the show and were telling me about your truck, and I kind of half paid attention, half didn't, and then came over here, took a look at it. This is a gorgeous 1948 Mercury pickup truck. Tell us about it.
Well, they only made Mercury trucks in Canada, and I didn't find out till after I got this vehicle that they actually made them from 1942 through 1965. So they were actually produced for quite a while. And the reason I wanted to do it is because just the conversation of it not being a Ford, and people don't realize, well, they never made a Mercury truck, but they did.
Ford body with Merc engine, is that how the Canadian Merc truck is built?
No, actually there's sheet metal differences. On the front, the grill's completely different, and it has an embossed area where the signal lights are in the front fender on the outside edge, where on the Ford, it's incorporated in the top grill bar, and then it says Mercury on the tailgate instead of Ford. And being a Mercury, just like a Mercury car in the U.S., it had a little more gingerbread stainless steel trim, but it's all been taken off of this one. And that's the sheet metal differences. It's only those three things.
How is it that you ended up with a Merc instead of a Ford truck?
Well, I actually started on a 48 Ford truck and had it about a third the way done, and then I came across a Merc, and I just had to do it because it was different. So that's how it happened.
What's the running gear on it?
Well, it's all Chevrolet. It's a 350 crate motor, 350 transmission. I just have the 10-bolt rear end in it. It's got a 4-link in it, TCI front end. It's got air and power, everything, doors, and it's a very drivable vehicle. I actually have a place in Yuma, Arizona, and I've driven it to Yuma and back.
One of the things that I think is interesting about the hobby is there are people that they consider car people, and there are people they consider truck people. Do you consider yourself a truck guy or just something with four wheels on it?
I have a little bit of everything, but I seem to tend to go with trucks. I just have a thing about it. In fact, some friends of mine bought me a sign from that old song, I'm a pickup man. I have other vehicles, but I've been driving this one this last year.
Here at the show, huge turnout today. It was raining this morning, and there are well over 500 cars here. I think they're sneaking up on 600. I don't know. Well, the one of the vendors that was supplying food ran out because they figured there wouldn't be any more than 300.
Right.
What do you think about the show?
Well, I think it's a very good show. We were here last year, too. I actually am with this whole group of cars here, and we came because this is really the last big one for the season. So we were here at 6:30 this morning when it was raining.
Yeah, and you're one of the dropouts, is that right?
Yes,
Tell us about the dropouts.
Well, the dropouts is a no-club club. Okay. It's one of these deals where we've been doing this for 40 years or more, and a group of us got together, and one guy had the plates made up and some ID cards. We each paid $25. We don't have meetings. We just show up and have a beer or pop and tell lies about our cars.
the club that's not a club, you've actually been together for several years, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, lots of years. At least this last club here, the Dropouts, 20 years.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I think I got a couple of years on you, so. Well, Ron, this is a absolute beautiful truck. Thank you for talking to me about it, and thanks for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show.
Yeah, I'm glad you let me do this because I'm proud of it.
Thank you. Stephanie Kelly, this is a really cool 62 Chrysler 300. It's a four-door hardtop, which is a little bit different, and it has quite a history. Tell us that.
It was actually my grandfather's car. He bought it brand new in '62. And then when he passed away, it went to my dad. And then about 10 years ago, I took it from my dad, and it's mine. So, and I've had it and been showing it for about 10 years now.
This is kind of sporty for a grandpa car, though he was probably a young man when he bought it.
Yeah.
You don't see many of these coming down the street. A four-door hardtop like this, are there many out there, or have you run across any?
Last time we looked, there were only 1,801 of these made, so there's probably 500 left. Survivors, I would think.
I would think that would be a high number. I bet it's even lower.
It could be. I don't know, yeah.
What's the power on it?
It's got a 383 in it. It still squawks it in second gear. It's an automatic, but you step on it and it's gone.
Was it this condition when you got it, or has it been babied by the family over the years?
It sat in a garage for 24 years. My grandfather stopped driving it, and then when he passed away and my dad got it, Dad brought it home, didn't do a whole lot with it. Then when I got it, it was totally oxidized. It's got dings and dents, but it's stock. It's the way it was when, all its life.
Well, it's not a letter car, but it's a 300. That's a pretty big deal. When people are looking at the car, do they recognize that that's something special?
They don't, no. They don't realize that, and that's why I'd love to get a new 300 and say this is the old 300, that's the new 300. They do ask if it's a letter series, and I say no, and they go, oh, like it's like it's a big deal to me. I love it. I don't care if it's a letter or not. It's part of my history, my family.
Well, a felt pen can make this any letter you want.
No, you don't. No, not on this guy.
62 Chryslers are very unique. I know Chrysler design department, some people think they were brilliant at the time, some people think they were really confused at the time. But there are certain things on this car that are really distinctive. The front end of this thing, the whole kind of cat's eye, and back then, an awful lot of those headlights ended up in custom cars because it was such a cool operation. Does anybody ever take note of that?
Some people do. Some really, you'll walk the walk up and they'll do the slant with their hands and comment on that and how unique and how they'd seen it on other cars. And I said, well, that's stock on this car. So yeah. And
then the fin thing was by 62 was tanking except for Cadillac pretty much.
Yep.
And the back end of these is sort of finned and sort of not finned.
It's got a slight curve, slight fin to it. That's about it. It's not a real flat rolled fender. It's got that little bit of fin. Yep.
I'm a huge fan of those two things. I think the front end of these things is really cool.
I love it driving down the road with the headlights on, and you see people look and they stare and they kind of follow you as they go by. So yeah.
Well, Stephanie, thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show. This is a beautiful 1962 Chrysler 300. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bruce Robinson, this is a beautiful 1928 Ford. It's new to the car scene in the Northwest this year, and I was aware of this car when it was being built, and I thought, oh, is it going to be another kind of T-buckety kind of whatever? It's not. It's very cool.
Well, thank you very much. It is very new to the scene, and I'm hoping next year to get it out even more.
Tell us about the running gear and the choices you made.
It's pretty standard hot rod. It's got a 350 Chev, got a 5-speed standard transmission, 9-inch Ford rear end. It's got a Heights front end, pretty much standard hot rod after that.
How about the windshield?
The windshield is actually what's called a Halleck windshield, and it has some pedigree to it. It's one of an original, maybe 25, of an original casting, so it has some pedigree.
lots of louvers, and your door panels look frighteningly like cheese graters to me.
They do.
You being the cheese.
They do. Luckily, we thought about it early on and sat in it and made sure my arms would not catch any of those before I had them punched. But yeah, I would have punched the whole thing.
Kind of a root beer color?
It is root beer. It's actually off of a Honda Element. It's called root beer, and is a pearl metallic. So the sun comes out, it really kind of pops. Pretty nice.
Are you windblown dramatically in this, or is it more like you're sunk down in a sports car? What's it like to drive?
I think that you need to think of it as a little bit like a motorcycle, and goggles would be appropriate probably. Turn your hat backwards, and then you're ready to go. But that said, it's a wind in the hair, if I had any hair.
And who built this? I know you had real hands-on with it.
It was built by a street rod builder in Linwood, Washington called Street Rod Vision. And it was my vision, but they hand-fabbed the whole thing. So
the whole car draws a lot of comment, and then that radiator shell really gets people's attention. What's that about?
Well, it's off of a 1927 Whippet, and it's actually probably the oldest component on the car. It's an original, and we decided early on that it might be a design component that would look good with the rest of the body and the overall kind of race car sort of look to it. But, and it's pretty fabulous as far as I'm concerned.
I've been doing this a long time, and I don't know anybody who kind of went one day, I think I'll put a 27 Whippet radiator shell on my. How did that come along?
Well, my builder, Mark Anderson, and I looked at it, and we had a 32 grill shell set up in the mock-up, and it just didn't look quite right. So he went home and drug it out from underneath his bench and brought it in. We set it in, and it made defined the whole kind of character of the car. And I'm very, very pleased with the way it turned out.
Well, everybody here is very pleased with it. We're very pleased with it. So, Bruce, thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle
Lance.
Show.
Appreciate it.
All right. Evan Gregg, this is a very cool car that you have. I understand that you have recently raced this and came in second place in a race. Is that right?
Yes.
What was the race like? Was it scary to drive?
No.
And tell us about it. What was it like going down the hill?
Fun.
Were there lots of people there and other cars and things?
Yes.
What was the most exciting thing that happened during that race?
I got to borrow one of my grandpa's friend's helmet.
You had your grandpa's friend's helmet?
We borrowed it.
Yeah, well, your grandpa just happens to be here. Is this your grandpa behind you?
Yes.
This is Lauren Ezell, and Lauren, I understand you were very significant in the construction of this vehicle, so tell us about it.
Well, this is a drop tank off a P-51 Mustang. I bought it for $35. I've had it about 5 years thinking someday I might actually do something with it. And then Evan came along, and then I heard about the Soapbox Derby days in Fircrest. So I decided I was going to build a racer. I bought the wheels at Portland Swap Meet. And I told my friends I was going to do it. I said, how hard could this really be? And I found out it wasn't that easy, but we made the deadline. Evan put most of the stickers on, and we went racing.
So how old are you, Evan?
4.5.
I didn't realize that they had categories for people that young.
7 and under was his class, and then it's like from 8 to 10. There's like 4 classes, and up to the big kids. And it's in Fircrest, and it's pretty cool. There's vintage derby cars there that I'm sure the original builders have their grandchildren in them. But we were the coolest by far.
So, Evan, he says you were the coolest by far. Was that true?
Yes.
And if there's somebody else that's 4.5 and they want to be in a race, what advice would you give them?
Okay.
Do you think it's okay for them to do that?
Sure.
All right, Evan, thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show. This is a wonderful car that you have. Shake my hand, buddy. What a great time we've had here in Spanaway, Washington at the High Tech Collision Classic Car and Truck Show. They were hoping for 300 cars. They had over 500. It was a screaming success. We had a wonderful time. A big thank you to the Pierce County Parks and Recreation people for inviting us out, and a big thank you to you for watching the show. If you weren't watching, we wouldn't have a show. So thanks a lot, and until next time, see you then.